Scott Ritter's here. He's a one-time Marine intelligence officer who served in the former Soviet Union, implementing arms control agreements. And from 1991 to 1998, he served as the chief inspector for the United States in Iraq, leading the search for Iraq's prescribed weapons of mass destruction. He was later a vocal critic of the American decision to go to war in Iraq. He's also the author of 9 books, including his latest, Disarmament in the Time of Perestroika, Arms Control, and the End of the Soviet Union. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Scott Ritter.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
So, Scott, you wrote this. I read this last night before I went to bed. It's good nighttime reading. It's the missiles of April, and it says Iran's retaliatory attack on Israel will go down in history as one of the greatest victories in this century. Now, before we get to you talking about that, I wanted to show you that. So, Israel attacked the Iranian embassy in Damascus and killed some top officials in the military of Iran. So they get to respond under the international law. And so they did. And this is from Uncover News. It says, outstanding video of Iran targeting Israel's air defense system. Iranian missiles with decoy bomblets are first deployed, and then several ballistic missiles hit their intended target. So here, are we allowed to show this? Let's see. So here's all there's all the missiles coming in, right? So they're trying to overwhelm
Iron Dome?
The Iron Dome, right? And now Israel said they got 99% of the missiles they knocked down, but as this video is going to show in a second here, a couple of them got through, at least a couple. So come on, this is taking forever, for F's sake. Oh, here we go. So look, it got through. And I think, there's another one got through. Here comes another one. Boom, here comes another one. So, looks like there's a little rust in that Iron Dome, is what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. So I don't need to show you that. So here's Ali Bumana says that here's why you shouldn't believe Israel's claim that most missiles were shot down and damage was minor. Iran hit military targets, so we won't see the damage. Remember what Nasrallah said a few weeks ago: if Hezbollah didn't film its successful operations, no one would believe them. And here's what you said. You said eye for an eye. Iran struck Nevatim air base with a now that's the base that there's 2 bases that Israel launched the attacks on the consulate, the Iranian consulate in Syria, and that was one of them. So that at least 7 of its new hypersonic missiles. Nevatim is home of the F-35 fighters that attacked the Iranian consulate in Damascus. Not a single Iranian missile was intercepted. Let that sink in. Israel is defenseless. And then you modified that statement. You said the drones and missiles designed to overwhelm the Israeli defenses did their job. 40 million of hardware cost Israeli and its allies billions. None of the missiles that were intended to make impact were intercepted. Percentages don't matter. Is that true? So you're saying, so tell me what exactly Iran did and how they were so successful.
Well, let's start with the Nevatim Air Base, home of Israel's F-35I, their modified F-35 fighters. These are the fighters that bombed the Iranian consulate in Damascus in violation of international law. But it's home to more than that. It's home to America's ANTPY-2 X-band radar, the most sophisticated anti-ballistic missile defense radar in the world. We have it there. This is the radar designed to detect Iranian missile launches from Iran. It's tied into our satellite network that monitors Iran continuously, any launch, any activity. The point I'm trying to make is that we have given Israel perfect ability to monitor Iran's missiles. Israel can't be taken by surprise. Anything Iran does, Israel will know. This surveillance technology is linked to the most sophisticated anti-ballistic missile defenses in the world. The Arrow 2, the Arrow 3, David Sling. These are all U.S.-Israeli projects. The improved Patriot, the THAAD missile system, which is an American-only missile system. We've deployed all these around Nevatim. My point is, Nevatim is the most heavily secured spot on the planet. The most heavily secured spot on the planet when it comes to anti-ballistic missile defense. There's no place on Earth more heavily defended than Nevatim. And Iran launched, we now have updates, 7 missiles against Nevatim. 5 of them hit their target. The most heavily defended spot on the world, in the world, right there, everything, the best. Nobody has better equipment than what's there. Iran launched 7 missiles against that base. 5 of them hit their target. That means that Israel is defenseless. It means America is defenseless. It means if Iran wanted to have saturated that base with missiles, they would have destroyed everything. Iran was simply making a point. They didn't want to destroy the base. They wanted to prove to Israel that we can touch you anytime we want to.
Did did they not know this?
The United States and Israel operate under the assumption that they have technological supremacy, that our technology is better than anything the Iranians can have. That video that you showed 2 missile types. First of all, understand that Iran did not use its latest technology. The missiles that were shown there, the newest one is about 7 years old. The other one is about a dozen years old. But first of all, you have the warhead that shoots the bomblets out. This is designed to dazzle a radar, meaning that the radar's tracking this system in. The first thing that happens is the warhead separates from the missile body. That drives the radar crazy now because it's tracking 2 things instead of 1. One is now spinning out of control, larger. They're trying to track that. The other one, smaller, is moving in. So they have to pick which target's the priority. They pick the smaller target. So now they come in, they start calibrating, and they start launching their missiles to take it out. And suddenly that warhead shoots off a whole bunch of bomblets that simulate the warhead. The radar goes crazy now. Instead of 1, there's like 20. And it's going, what the hell do we hit now? What the hell do we hit now? And then to confuse it even more, that warhead waits, and then ignites its own motor and shoots through. And that what you saw up there was all the bomblets getting hit. And then that warhead shoots through. And at the last second, if you slow that down, you'll see that the warhead came in, it tucked up, went in, tucked up, it maneuvered in to hit the target. It can't be shot down. That's what the Israelis did. The second, and they used another maneuvering warhead to strike the base in Nevatim. These are good warheads that the Iranians have. They're better than our ability to shoot them down, but they're not the best that Iran has. Iran has hypersonics. What I found out later on, initially there was talk that hypersonic missiles were used. The Iranians have clarified that and said we didn't use any of our hypersonic missiles. If they had used hypersonic missiles, they would come in extraordinarily fast, not using a ballistic arc with maneuvering warhead. You wouldn't have seen them. They would have just hit the ground and blown up.
So what you're saying is a hypersonic missile travels so fast you can't track it.
The radar that we have used is designed to track a ballistic trajectory or a slower moving linear trajectory. It's not designed to track something that's coming in at the advanced speeds that the hypersonic is. Plus, at the end, when they separate that warhead and it accelerates on its own, maneuvering, the radar can't track it. So literally, it will come fly in under the radar and blow up whatever it aims at. The Iranians have shown that the precision of their missiles, the guidance is within a meter. So within 1 meter of what they want to hit, they're going to hit it.
So this does not bode well for Israel. I mean, to say the least, right?
Right.
Well, what it does is it demonstrates to Israel and the United States, because remember, Iran was sending a signal to everybody.
Right.
That Iran now has what's called deterrence superiority. They could even have deterrence supremacy. What they're saying is, you can't attack us without consequence. If you attack us, if you attack our territory, and now what Iran has said is you attack us anywhere. They've taken the American posture. You know how America says if you blow up one of our bases in Syria and you kill 3 American soldiers, we will hit you. What Iran's saying now is if Israel bombs an Iranian position in Syria, even though it's not an embassy or a consulate, Iran will retaliate. There's no more freebies. There's no free pass. There's no more Israel doing whatever it wants to do against Iran. If Israel or anybody attacks Iran anywhere inside Iran or outside of Iran, Iran has now established a precedent that says we will hit you with missiles that you can't defend yourself against.
So this happened before Iran attacked a United States military base, right? Now, I think this was in 2019? 20 to 2020? Okay. So here's the New York Times headline. It says, urged to launch an attack, Trump listened to the skeptics who said it would be a costly mistake. He heard from his generals and his diplomats, lawmakers weighed in, and so the same thing that Israel's facing right now, the United States faced before from her. So this idea, I think a lot of people, certainly like Lindsey Graham, think that we could just go in and wipe out Iran very easily. But even back when Trump was president, he realized that he couldn't. It says, but among the voices that rang powerful so that's when he was watching Tucker Carlson. While national security advisors were urging a military strike against Iran, Mr. Carlson in recent days had told Mr. Trump that responding to Tehran's provocations with force was crazy. Belligerent and confrontational as he is in public, Mr. Trump has at times pulled back from the use of force, convinced that America has wasted too many lives and too much money in pointless Middle East wars, and wary of repeating what he considers the mistakes of his predecessors. As Mr. Carlson and other skeptics have argued, a strike against Iran could easily spiral into a full-fledged war without easy victory that Mr. Trump was told was everything he ran against. So
there's a backstory to this, though.
Okay, what is the backstory?
That's all BS. I'm sure Tucker Carlson had that conversation with him and everything, but the real conversation took place between Trump and his generals. You see, after Trump assassinated Qasem Soleimani in January of 2020, the Iranians told the United States that they will be striking the Al-Assad air base where the drones were taken off that killed. They gave the Americans advance notice so America could get troops out of the way. They fired at least 10 missiles, and when the United States looked, the missiles hit every building on the base, every major building, destroyed them, huge craters. And at that point in time, the United States realized that they can't shoot down these missiles, and these missiles hit what they were aimed at. Later on, when Iran shot down the Global Hawk drone over the Strait of Hormuz, which it accused of coming into its territory, Trump was demanding that America bomb Iranian air defense sites in Iran. And that time, the Pentagon came up and said, we can do that. But understand, the moment we do that, Iran will flatten all of our bases in the region, and there's nothing we can do to stop them. And then if you want to escalate further, they'll shut down the Strait of Hormuz, choking off our oil. And then if you want to escalate further, we're going to have to mobilize troops that we don't have in the region. It's going to take 12 months to get enough troops. We're going to bring them in on ships that are going to get sunk before they come there. This is going to turn into a war that's going to last 5 years with no guarantee of American victory. Do you really want to retaliate against an Iranian air defense site? And that's when the president said, no, I don't. But because he couldn't admit that he stood down, he started making things up about how he was a humanist. He didn't want to bring in casualties. He probably not to go to war. But he's really just a man who was confronted with the harsh truth that America no longer has the non-nuclear capacity to intimidate a nation like Iran.
And do you think, does Iran have nuclear bombs, you think?
No, actually, Iran doesn't, and Iran's made a point not to have that. I actually had a conversation with the Iranian president earlier, or late in the middle of last year, when he was in New York, and I asked him about, why doesn't Iran pursue nuclear weapons for deterrence, and what about Iran's ballistic missile program? The world is concerned about that, and he said that Iran will never have a nuclear weapons program, that they don't believe in nuclear weapons, but that their ballistic missiles are their deterrence, that their ballistic missile capability is so strong that they will deter. And at the time I said, but how does the world know they're strong? And he said, when the time comes, the world will find out. The world just found out.
And so what do you think do you think Israel was striking the Iranian consulate in Syria? Because they bombed Syria a lot. They bombed it on the regular. But this was an escalation because that embassy is seen as Iran property, right? That's like bombing Iran. And they hadn't done that before, but they had bombed other places inside Syria that they thought were working or with Iran. So this was definitely an escalation. Why do you think they wanted to escalate? Was it to create a wider war? What was the point of them doing this?
No, I think that the Israelis, first of all, they bombed it because there was a meeting taking place inside that consulate of Iran's top military leadership involved in planning the axis of resistance activities against Israel regarding Gaza. The man who ran the resupply of Hamas, the man who coordinated with Hezbollah, the man who coordinated with the Iraqi militias, the man who coordinated with the Houthi. They all came together for this strategy session on what the next phase of the conflict would look like. Israel found out about this and said, we need to take them out. They knew that they were hitting an embassy situation. But remember, this is an Israel that has assassinated Iranian nuclear scientists in Tehran. They've sent assassins in to kill them. They're not Israeli assassins. They're agents working for Israel. They also sent people in to blow up Iranian factories. They've been attacking Iranian generals and officers in Syria, in Lebanon, in Iraq with impunity. And I think they believed that Iran had been intimidated, that Iran wouldn't retaliate, that Iran was scared to retaliate. And so they felt that they could carry out this action and that Iran wouldn't do anything in retaliation. I think Israel was shocked when Iran said, not only will we retaliate, but when they actually retaliated, they saw the scope and scale of the retaliation. But the biggest shock was when 5 missiles hit the place that no missiles are supposed to ever hit Nevatim airfield. And that's unthinkable. Every missile defense system that Israel has, and including the defense systems that America has, we're defending that base with the best radars, the best surveillance and tracking capability, and they couldn't shoot down the Iranian missiles.
Well, am I wrong to feel that this actually gives me hope that there won't be a World War III starting in the Middle East? Am I wrong to think that?
You would be absolutely correct to think that, except we have to throw in a wild card here, and that's called Benjamin Netanyahu and his right-wing coalition government in Israel. You see, Netanyahu is under pressure. He governs with this coalition that's a very narrow coalition, and it's held together only by these extremists who demand that Israel not only commit genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza, but that Israel also flex its muscle abroad, that Israel retains deterrence supremacy, that no nation would dare attack Israel. On October 7th, he also showed himself to be a failure as the leader of Israel when Hamas carried out an attack, proving that Israel's military wasn't as good as they thought it was. His military has floundered in Gaza, and now the Iranians have attacked Israel. He is in a lot of trouble if he doesn't find a way to look strong. And so right now there's a game being played in the war cabinet where the entire war cabinet and the entire Israeli military is demanding that they retaliate against Iran. And now the question is, will Netanyahu yield to their demands, or will he listen to Joe Biden, who's saying, don't do this, and tell his cabinet, America stopped me? This is about Netanyahu's political survival. This is about the narcissism of a man who puts his political future, his political viability above the security of his nation and the security of the world. He's willing to sacrifice global security because if Iran strikes Israel again, it'll be of such a magnitude that the United States will have no choice but to step in. Then Iran attacks America. Now, next thing we know, the Strait of Hormuz is shut down, oil production facilities are bombed, and we have a global economic crisis that'll last decades. This is the consequences of Netanyahu's irresponsible behavior. So normally I'd agree with you, and I'd say go to bed tonight, sleep well. I'm going to be tossing and turning like you've never seen a person tossing and turning before, because I'm very concerned what's going to happen tonight. I'm very concerned that Netanyahu is going to put his personal political ambition above everything else and launch a retaliation against Iran. And the Iranians have already said, the moment your airplanes take off, we will send our missiles. They're not even going to wait for Israel to come and hit them. The moment the airplanes take off, Iran is going to retaliate.
So here's what Joe Biden had to say.
We are devoted to the defense of Israel. We will support Israel. We will help defend Israel, and Iran will not succeed.
So Iran has already succeeded, correct?
Yeah. Iran has succeeded in establishing its own version of deterrence supremacy. And it worked because the United States, what he did, what he said after that is, we will not participate in offensive action against Iran. Because the United States knows that they do participate in offensive action against Iran. Every American base in the Middle East will be hit with missiles that we can't stop, and missiles that will destroy whatever they're aiming at. All those billions of dollars of airplanes we have at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar will be destroyed. What we have in Kuwait will be destroyed. The Fifth Fleet in Bahrain destroyed. We can't defend them. We are incapable of defending them. He knows that. So he's limiting his words to, we will defend Israel, meaning that if Iran attacks Israel, we will defend Israel. But we will not go to war against Iran for Israel. That's because Iran has established deterrence supremacy over the United States. The United States is afraid to attack Iran directly.
Now, you tweeted this out also. You said Ben Gurion Airport has resumed normal operations. There will be no Israel response. The crisis is over. Do you still feel that way?
Well, I felt that way on April 13th at 10:44 p.m. Because you don't go to war with your airport open, but the first thing that happens before missiles fly is you close your airspace, you terminate airport operations, no airplanes take off, no airplanes come in, you send the kids home, you put them in bunkers, and then you go to war. So when Israel said, we're going to let the kids out of the bunkers, we're reopening school, and Ben Gurion Airport is resuming normal operations, at that time I said Israel will not be launching an immediate counterattack, and I was correct. The problem is, as Israel reflects on what Iran has done and what Iran has accomplished, it scares them to death. And they are very afraid of yielding the deterrence supremacy to Iran. And politically, that's very difficult for Netanyahu to do. And so he is under growing pressure from his cabinet, from the military, to do something in retaliation, that they can't just absorb this attack. They have to do something in retaliation. And now I'm very worried. Now, at the moment, Ben Gurion Airport is still open. But I will tell you what, the moment you get a tweet that says Israel's closing airspace, it's all over. The war is going to start.
So I want to get your reaction to this. Israel journalist Ronan Bergman has a remarkable quote from a source with knowledge of Israeli discussions on Iran. And the quote is this: if the talks were broadcast live on YouTube, you'd have 4 million people clamoring at Ben Gurion Airport trying to get out of here. What's your response to that?
He's 100% correct. Right now, the Israeli military, they're very capable. From 1994 to 1998, I worked with Israeli intelligence, the Aman, and I worked with their technical directorate. These are the guys who are the missile experts. Their job is to take the debris, to evaluate the photographs, and sort of reconstruct the capability. I worked with them on doing that with the Iraqi missile capability. These are the guys that right now are evaluating what Iran just did. And they are briefing their leadership about the Iranian warheads, about the performance of the missiles, and how this performance makes it impossible for intercept. There's not an intercept solution. The second people hear that, they realize that Israel is defenseless. And at that point in time, 4 million Israelis who have foreign passports, who are dual citizens, will get out of the country because Israel cannot survive. They will recognize that Israel is not the land of milk and honey, that Israel is going to be a smoking ruin if they go to war. And then the other thing that these guys are telling the Israeli leadership is that while Iran may have fired 100 missiles at them, I'm not counting the drones, Iran has 3,000 in reserve, meaning that Iran can do this over and over and over and over again until there's nothing left in Israel. And again, that's what the Israeli leadership is hearing. If they broadcast that on TV, every single one of those dual passport holding Israeli heroes would suddenly realize that they didn't want to be Israeli anymore, and they'd be fleeing home to their parent country.
Yeah, sure. Israel first, unless there's actual shit going down, and then I'm getting the hell out of here.
Unless you actually have to die for it, yeah.
So would it be in everyone's interest to let the Israeli people and the press and Benjamin Netanyahu say that the Iron Dome worked and only 1%, we got 99% of the missiles, and so they could declare victory, so they could save face, so they wouldn't have to launch a response? Is that possible?
That was the American objective. If you noticed immediately, the United States was saying, we shot down 99% of these things. We blew everything up. There's nothing happening. What got through didn't do any damage. This is the biggest victory in the world. Israel has done the greatest victory in the world. It's wonderful. Hoorah. We don't even have to worry about those Iranians. They gave us their best shot. We went into the ring. They hit us with everything they have, their Sunday punch, and it glanced off the chin. Now the Iranians realize they can't do anything. They're hiding in their corner, and they've conceded the ring to us. They didn't answer the bell. That's what they should be saying right now. And but the problem is the Israeli leadership knows the truth. And Israel is a democracy still, and the press will find out the truth. And eventually the leadership will be confronted with the fact that the exact opposite is what happened. And that's what's happening now. Their leadership understands that all of Israel knows that Iran can destroy them, and that if they want to stay in power, they're going to have to demonstrate to the Iranians that the price Iran will pay for attacking Israel is prohibitively high.
So this is from 8 a.m. yesterday, Sunday, the 14th of April. Breaking news. Confrontation with Iran is not over yet, says Israeli defense minister. The confrontation between Iran and Israel is not over yet, Israel's defense minister said on Sunday following Tehran's attack on Israel the previous night. Quote, the state of Israel was attacked with hundreds of missiles and unmanned aerial vehicles, and the Israeli Defense Force thwarted this attack in an impressive manner, Gallant said, urging Israelis to remain alert and attentive to the instructions published by the IDF and Home Front Command. The defense minister stressed that Israel must be prepared for every scenario. Together with the United States and additional partners, we managed to defend the territory of the state of Israel. Very little damage was caused. This is the result of the IDF's impress. So this is exactly what we were just talking about, right? So this is the story they're giving. The story is that we won this. Iran didn't do anything. It was a glancing blow. And so let me just, here's what David Sachs, he tweeted this out. These are the two possibilities that could happen. Israel strikes back hard. The regional war begins. The U.S. gets dragged in to help Israel, not with boots on the ground, but in every other way. Netanyahu was comfortable with this scenario, or he wouldn't have bombed the Iranian embassy on April 1st. Hawks in Washington, who have sought war with Iran for 2 decades, are euphoric. Both Ukraine and Israel get funding, but U.S. stockpiles are already stretched thin, so hard trade-offs must be made. In particular, there just aren't enough air defense missiles to go around. Both wars go from bad to worse, and Biden loses in November, or Biden tells the Israelis not to retaliate, using all of his leverage to make them stand down. The choice should be obvious, but Biden may not be capable of executing option 2, so war it is. What do you think? Now, but Biden is it's already been public that he said he's not going to go on the offensive against Iran, but he will help Israel defend from incoming. What do you think is going on, and what's going to happen with Biden?
Well, the option 1 that he put up there dealt primarily with American domestic prerogatives, meaning what America will do, etc. They're missing a point in that analysis. Understand that right now Benjamin Netanyahu has lost the confidence of his country, his cabinet, his war cabinet, his ministers. In any normal nation, he would be tossed out on his ear. But also that if he gets tossed out, he'll be arrested immediately, charged with corruption. He has indictments hanging over his head, put on trial. He'll lose that trial and will spend the rest of his life in jail. He's 76 years old in poor health. It's a death sentence to go to jail for him. His only chance to stay in power is to have Israel stay at war. Israel has lost Gaza. Understand that. Everybody needs to understand that they have lost the Gaza conflict. And if he accepts the ceasefire that he's being pressured to accept, that's an admission of defeat, and he will be kicked out of office. His only chance to stay viable is to have a broader conflict, a broader war. The broader war with Iran does a couple things. 1, it keeps him in power as the wartime leader. 2, it changes the entire discussion about what's going on in the Middle East right now. For all the people out there in the street demonstrating for Palestine right now, and I applaud them all, I really do. But what happens when the price of oil, the price of gas at the pump goes from $4, where it is right now, to $12, to $15, to $20? What happens when there's no food? And do you remember the trucker crisis that we had last year?
Yes.
Where in Long Beach, and how suddenly shelves were empty and there was no food because the truckers weren't getting it there? What happens when there's no diesel gas? The trucks can't run, nothing gets delivered, the shelves are empty. What happens when all these Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck suddenly see all the prices go insane, their paycheck doesn't alter, they miss their mortgage, they suddenly are homeless in the streets? All these people that are demonstrating for Palestine will be worrying about something totally different, which is their individual survival. And this is what the Iranians fear, this is what the Palestinians fear. Right now, Iran's winning the war. They've turned the tables on Israel. The Houthi are strangling Israel. The Palestinian cause is being heralded everywhere. Israel has been turned into a pariah nation. But if Israel flips the script now, and this becomes a larger battle between Israel and Iran, and there's now an energy crisis, a global energy crisis, that's the problem that needs to be solved. And Palestine could find itself being sacrificed at the negotiating table. And this is what Netanyahu is looking at. He's trying desperately to find a path to political survival. And a war with Iran is the only available path to him right now. And this is what I said. This narcissist is willing to sacrifice global security for the chance to stay in political power for another 6 months to a year.
Come see us on tour. We're going to be in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, Cortland, New York, Oakmont, Pennsylvania, El Paso, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, Vancouver, British Columbia. First show sold out. Denver, Colorado, Ashland, Virginia, Athens, Georgia, and Minneapolis. We're coming back to Minneapolis. If you couldn't get tickets last time, there'll be some available this time. We're doing 2 shows. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets.